John, ready, set, go. Here comes Transform.
Okay, let's go to Raymond here, and saying, can we get rid of? I think he's saying, can we get rid of the Jake Cronenworth contract?
Well, they're shopping, but AJ Preller, your guy, gave him a 7-year contract worth, I think, $78 million. Who wants to take on $10 million a year for a guy who's had 2 bad seasons in a row hitting .229? The guy can play a lot of positions. I think he's probably got more value here for the Padres playing any and all positions. And maybe he's going to work his way out of the substandard bat. He's had 2 years in a row in which his numbers have really dropped. But you give him a glove and go play a ton of places. So I don't know if they can trade him for a pitcher. And I don't want to trade him if AJ's got to write a check and pay a piece of his salary going out the door. I don't think that's a value either. So at this point, Cronenworth's been shopped. I don't know if there's any takers. Raymond, I think I'd rather keep him.
Yeah, I think you got to keep the guy, especially since he's so versatile and they got holes all over the place. You could plug Cronenworth wherever you want, but that contract did seem very unnecessary at the time.
At that point in time, like a bunch of the other contracts were, you kidding me?
Yeah. That's just, I mean, we all love Jake and he's a great guy and he was a surprise, when he kind of landed here in with the Padres, but yeah, I mean, there's such a mess they got to unravel there.
On we go.
Let's go here to Neil. And he says, to be a fly on the wall at that reunion last night would have been amazing to hear all the stories.
We were, and I posted today, if you go on Twitter, just go to Hacksaw 1090. They took a team photo of us, all the guys. There might have been 35 guys and women. We all worked together at 690, 1090. And at the bottom, I said, team photo, Christmas party, San Diego Sports Talk, and they put an asterisk. By the way, we all worked at 690, 1090 for Clear Channel iHeartRadio, and we all got let go. So everybody was roaring today but yeah, a lot of friends, and we all aren't working there anymore because somebody in management decided to let us all go. But it was really fun.
Yeah, I saw the photos on Facebook, and it's a lot of great people there, like John Quintera, and I saw Scott Kaplan in the photos. So it's just a good group of guys, and the women too. I mean, it just seems like it's a fraternity, even though everyone's kind of doing their own thing now.
Yeah, everybody's gone lots of directions. I told one of my friends today, gee, I wish Steve Hartman were still living in San Diego because he would have been fun. And Philly Billy and, the late Chet 40, we could have swapped some more stories along the way.
Okay, let's go here to Willie. And he says, Ohtani said he wanted to win, basically eliminating the Angels. He was going to go into LA, just use others to up the price. 2/3 of the teams can't even bid on these guys, put teams in a division based on payrolls.
Well, this is the end result of what John and I have been preaching, that there needs to be strong luxury tax, and we do have that. There needs to be a floor to spending. As much as you might be Padre fan, Dodger fan, Mets, Yankees, Red Sox fan, the rest of it's not good for baseball. Look at baseball. How many haves are there versus how many have-nots? I mean, I just think the disparity of those who have money to spend wild amounts and the amount of money can be spent by other people, it's terrible. The only solution to that is a floor to spending. If you're taking revenue sharing in all these small markets, Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Detroit, Baltimore, they're taking revenue sharing. You have to spend to a threshold. Maybe it's $120 million. Luxury taxes starts at 237 and goes high well beyond that. But if you had to spend $120 million in each of these markets, because you're getting revenue sharing, and they're all making money, if you had to spend it, that would mean, John, veteran players would go to Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Detroit, Baltimore, Miami, whomever, and they'd have better teams. And if they have better teams, that's good for all of baseball. Is it not?
Mm-hmm. Well, Kansas City just signed those Padres pitchers.
Yeah, but for years and years and years, Kansas City's put garbage on the field because they refused to spend. Now, everybody thinks it's great. They got Michael Walker and Seth Lugo, but, where you been the last 5 years while you've been raking in all this profit sharing and the TV money and whoever shows up at Royal Stadium?
Well, imagine if they had $120 million floor. That was the minimum. I'd imagine the Oakland A's would lose money every year if they stayed in Oakland.
No, because the product would be better, and then maybe they'd draw better.
Okay. But, I mean, I can't imagine their revenues exceed $120 million now.
You put a good product on the field?
Okay.
Well, you're getting $120 million because you have to spend $120 because you're getting revenue sharing. Right. And you're getting your cut of the TV pie. But you're making the owner spend it on the mid-level veteran guy who can help. Do you think the A's would be better if they had Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo?
Yeah, they would be. But imagine if those guys got hurt and then you got a minimum you got to hit, and the fans say, oh, screw it, same old Oakland A's.
Okay. Well, baseball would be better if you did it my way than the way it's being done right now. I got a friend in Pittsburgh that stole my phrase. He's a beat writer. And he asked the question in an article in Pittsburgh, how come the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Red Sox and the Mets go shopping at Neiman Marcus and the Pirates shop at Dollar General? And that's what small market baseball's become, because baseball's allowed this to happen and the union has allowed it to happen. You would think the union would want every mid-level pitcher to have multiple choices as to where to go. And if we had a floor to spending in which the Pirates had to spend $120 million, I'd direct my second-tier starting pitcher who can still pitch to go to Pittsburgh, and that makes the Pirates better, which is better for the fan. No,
it is. And you know, here with Willie saying that about 2/3 of the teams aren't even in the mix. I mean, that's like 20 of the 30, right?
But if that has been $120 million because they took all this revenue share and the TV contract money, they'd be better teams.
They would be. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that for the players, it would be way better. Because there's only so many places that Soto or Ohtani can play. So I don't know. The Dodgers are playing with a strong hand right now, aren't
Tony
they?
Clark could argue with me, but I'm a talk show host and the head of the union's bleeping wrong. Let's move on.
Okay, moving on. And this is from Steve. And he says, I want a top draft pick. I think he's talking about the Chargers here.
Well, I hate to say tanking, but if you tank, you're going to get it. I think the Chargers, as of the debacle in Las Vegas, now have the 8th pick in the draft. And they still got to play Josh Allen and they got to play Patrick Mahomes. So it is conceivable. It's hard to believe the Chargers might be 6-11 or maybe even 5-12. It's conceivable. I'll be intrigued to see what happens on Saturday. Do they mail it in? Do they show up? Can they ratchet this thing up for this coach, Gift Smith? I don't know. They're so beat up right now, and they don't have their starting quarterback. They'd have a chance to win a bunch of games at the end if it were Justin Herbert. I just don't know that they have enough with Easton Stick to be able to do it. And then what's their emotional mind state at? I mean, that was the worst beatdown I have ever seen in modern day. I didn't see much of the Miami New England game or the Miami Denver game when it was 70-20 the second week of the season, but this was terrible.
Well, let's just say, for example, John Spanos gives you a call. It says, Lee, man, you're a great guy from the Chargers history.
Oh, he wouldn't say that.
Yeah. And he says, we're going to hire you to be our GM. We're going to give you player personnel control. We're going to let you dictate the future of the LA Chargers. What are some of the top 2 or 3 things you would do?
Well, you continue to draft athletes because athletes win games. You need, obviously, I'd do an evaluation of their training staff. Are they doing the right things for these players? Because they have such a siege of injuries 3 years running. I've never seen it. And then I would be bold. I would go into the marketplace during the season and I would plug in and find some guys that make a difference. I told Tom Telesco, because he's ultra conservative. He's by the book. He's always done it this way. Well, you haven't won or come close to winning very much. But I told him, I said, well, I was the voice of the Chargers. When we had that run to the Super Bowl, we had the Seaus and they traded for Stan Humphries. But they needed short-term veteran leadership from guys who could make a difference for one season. And you go back and you look, they traded for touchdown Tony Martin. They traded for Stan Humphries. And those were shorter-term rentals, but those guys were players. But they needed help. And they went into the marketplace, and Bobby Beathard rented Stan Brock. Had been in the league forever, massive right tackle, firebrand of a personality. They went on the waiver wire and they signed 2 free agents, defensive linemen. I call them tons of fun. Reuben Davis, Sean Lee.
Yeah.
Made a huge difference in front of Seau, who was directing, and Rodney Harrison on the back end. Those type of short-term rentals. I'm not saying you go into the marketplace and you get assholes. But there are guys you can rent for 1 year, might be playing for the next contract, that could come in there and maybe make a difference. And as much as I like Telesco, he didn't do that because that was off the charts. That was off the page. Bill Polian, who he was a protege of Polian, never did that in Indianapolis, never did that. Well, you got to do that because that either buys you time, buys you insurance, buys you leadership. If I were the general manager, that's the thing I would do that hadn't been done there. But They got to get healthy, and they're going to get high draft picks, and they've drafted athletes. I mean, it's pretty cool, the athletic nature of the roster. It's just not cool that they've had so many injuries, and surely something's missing with how poorly the offensive front has played, and how come their defense just can't get it together despite having all these guys who can run. You got to have athletes.
Yeah, I mean, everything is a disaster there. So I'm curious to see what they end up doing. I mean, there's some of those GM candidates that you were mentioning, some interesting names.
Yeah, the guy in San Francisco, Adam Peters, I think has to be marquee because he's been at the right hand of John Lynch Jr., and I think you'd agree with me. I know you'd agree with me because I'm right. San Francisco 49ers, a bleeping great franchise right now, thanks to John Lynch.
Oh, yeah, it's tremendous. I'm looking forward to the game against Baltimore. Hey, here's some comments, people responding to the podcast of All Fans Forum. And Raul says, yes, do it. And Neil says, one day of jam-packed wall-to-wall calls.
To quote the host, get off your ass and get on the phone.
Yeah, like the good old days on that 1 a.m. station. Would the car phone still go to the front of the line?
Raider fan, be a man, call the ladies line.
Yeah, here. From Baja to the Rocky Mountains, send me your 5 stars to Montezuma Mesa.
Okay, I guess we have an idea for a future program. Maybe we'll figure that out shortly. But yeah, we'll do one. We'll have to promote it in advance so that people hit the floor running when we do the whole fans forum show. But yeah, that we got some things in the think tank that we're kicking around. So maybe that's one of the special things you're talking about, a first-time show.
Oh, for sure. I think it's a lot of fun.
We'll tell you about that. Okay, let's get back here. We got some other.
Okay, here. This is from Michael, and he says, Lee, longtime listener, follower, how stable is Padres ownership? Could the team be put up for sale?
No, they say no. The Seidler family, Seidler Equity owns the team. They will continue to operate it. The only thing that is different, obviously, is the price tag is coming down on the payroll. And I think this is a combination of the contracts that A.J. Preller gave out. And it's the reality. The loss of the $60 million per year TV revenue, I think, is a huge impact. So, but, for $180 million, and that's what I'm led to believe it might be, to go from 253 to 180, the problem is, of the 180, virtually all of it's already committed to Machado and Tatis and Cronenworth and Bogarts and the 2 pitchers at the front end. So there's very little, a little amount of money for them to spend on what's left there. But for $180 million, you'd think you'd be able to get a pretty good team. But the thing is, AJ has committed so much money in guaranteeing contracts going out for a decade or so to each of their veterans. So they're going to have to hit the jackpot on whatever acquisitions they can make, for whether it's Yuki Matsui, the pitcher from Japan, or it's the next free agent guy coming in the door. But no, it's not going to be put up for sale. They're going to run it, but the dollar value of the payroll is going to be a little bit different because of the loss of the TV contract, I think.
Oh, yeah. That whole thing, that's another big problem. But you figure every one of those marquee guys that you just mentioned, roughly speaking, you're going to be making between, 20 and 30 million a year. So if it's Machado or Bogarts or Yu Darvish, or Joe Musgrove
or El Nino,
or El Nino. And so if you just say 5 guys, 25 mil, that's 125 right there.
And you have 180,
and you have 180 as a limit. Yeah, that's going to be a tough puzzle to solve.
We'll see where this go. The guys worked magic before. The man must work magic underneath the Christmas tree with this roster.
Here's one here from Javier. He says, Hacksaw, Ohtani and Yamamoto are going to attend the Rams game tonight. I smell a deal nearing.
Well, I guess you can connect the dots because Ohtani was at that meeting at Dodger Stadium with Yamamoto when they took the tour. I've been led to believe, and again, things change in terms of the creating financing of contracts. I'm led to believe that the Dodgers offered him a 5-year state-of-the-art deal, which might be $25 million per season, with option years for years 6, 7, 8, and 9, 10. And the theory is common sense, nobody gives pitchers 10-year contracts. But maybe they do a 5-year deal that allows him either to pick up the 6th year if he continues to be a superstar, or allows him to revisit free agency at age 30. He's only 25 right now. But as long as you're bidding, and the Yankees are in this, and the Mets are definitely interested in this, I think these are the final 3 that are bidding on Yamamoto. But I have a tough time thinking that Andrew Friedman would give any pitcher a 10-year deal.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. But, Ohtani got the big deal, but he's a pitcher. But, yeah, he also hits as well. That would be a bold move to get a 10-year deal for a pitcher. So let's talk a little bit about tonight's game, because this is one of the questions that came up here. And this is from Joseph. he said, "Who wins tonight, the Rams or the Saints?" Go
I
Puka.
like the Rams because New Orleans has got a lot of injuries. New Orleans has had a really streaky season. Dennis Allen, the Saints coach, might be applying to be a co-host on this portal at the end on this podcast. New Orleans got a lot of problems. Derek Carr's arrival hasn't made the big difference, or a struggling 500 team. He's been hurt a couple times. He doesn't have his running back. Alvin Kamara has been in and out of the line, but doesn't have his wide receiver, Michael Thomas. Chris Olave was hurt, though he is going to play in the Thursday night game. And the flip side of that, Sean McVay's every right to send me an email and saying, "You're full of crap. We're not a 4-13 team," because I said this might be miserable. McVay's done a heck of a job coaching this thing up. And by the way, I'll throw this out as an addendum comment. We've talked about potential coaching candidates for the Chargers with Brandon Staley being jettisoned. Raheem Morris, defensive coordinator, Rams, kind of rebuilt his reputation after a really bad experience in Tampa. He wants to coach, be a head coach again. If Raheem Morris winds up in San Diego, Brandon Staley might go back to Sean McVay's staff as defensive coordinator. In essence, would have a swap. Raheem Morris would come here, Staley would go there. That might be a long shot. I don't know how Charger administration would view Raheem Morris. Is he a second-time coaching candidate, or is he a retread? Tough call.
That's interesting. Yeah, you're saying come here, come there, but they're not coming to San Diego. They're going to stay in SoFi. I think it's interesting that Staley, where else could he go but the Rams, right? I mean, who's going to hire him?
Well, he might get hired, but he might not be somebody's defensive coordinator. But the fact he was there and had success for 1 year under McVay, yeah, I could see him walking across from one locker room to the other locker room if Raheem Morris vacates. But who knows? There's so many coaches out there on the carousel, so many names on the board that are going to get interviews. And Raheem Morris had been there, didn't work out. Will somebody give him a second chance? But if you're doing that, you got to talk about Dan Quinn in Dallas.
Right.
If you're doing that, you got to talk about the defensive coordinator with the Cleveland Browns, Jim Schwartz. Just because they failed one place, bad organizations, doesn't mean that they can't rally it back. And Dan Quinn has really rebuilt his resume with the Dallas Cowboys. And all you need to know about Cleveland is they're number one in the bleeping stats defensively, and that's because of Jim Schwartz. So Raheem Morris is not the only guy out there who had the first chance, didn't work out, wants a second chance because there's other guys out there too.
Wow. I mean, this is going to be fascinating. And, we're talking about Chargers coach. We got a social media comment here, and this is from Jonathan. And he says, "I do not want Belichick anywhere near Herbert and this offense. Yes, his defense has been great, but he cannot identify talent on offense or develop quarterback offensive scheme. Who's he going to bring in as the offensive coordinator? McDaniels?" Laughing my ass off. No. I do not want Dan Quinn either. He finished his head coach career as the Falcons head coach with a losing record after Shanahan left, and is famously known for blowing a 28-3 lead in the playoffs. Sound familiar? Herbert needs an offensive-minded head coach, so he has some continuity, stability, and can grow in a system behind a great offensive mind to take his game to another level.
You took up all that space on my board, and all you had to say was Jim Harbaugh, right? So we'll see. Long process. They fired these guys so early. They can't interview anybody until they get through the second round of the playoffs. The new rule is you cannot talk to anybody as a coaching candidate, as a GM candidate, until you're through the divisional series before we go to the AFC NFC championship game. So, I mean, we're talking here at least 5 more weeks before they can actually go through the interview process. But Jonathan, all you need to do is put Jim Harbaugh at the headline. You don't need the rest of the rhetoric, but that's okay.
Well, especially with Harbaugh now, those Chargers becoming a real deal. It's almost like when the coach at SC went to go to the NFL in Seattle. Pete Carroll. Yeah. So I kind of see that happening, right?
Well, you need to get on your cell phone and find out when the connections are for the flights out of Detroit coming to Los Angeles.
Exactly. All right, here, let's get a couple more comments here. Let's talk a little about Aztec recruiting. And this is from San Diego State Aztec 21. He says, many of the Aztec players were told they would be playing in the Pac-12. Not happening. As a result, the majority left to go to Power 4 programs. In my opinion, that's why they left San Diego State.
Probably. But, you have to look at the resume. Sean Lewis, what he did at Colorado on short term, what he did at Kent State is unbelievable. Why would you not pay attention to the program and the success of the program. Yeah, granted, some of these guys, it might have been swayed by money, so they wind up going to one of the Pac-4 programs. A couple of Aztecs wind up at TCU.
Hmm.
Obviously, one has gone to UCLA. That may have been a piece of the equation. But why would you not give this coach a bit of a window, especially since you go somewhere else, new program, different culture, very different playbook. That takes time to get used to, and you only got 1 year of eligibility left. And what if you don't win a starting job?
Yeah, or even make the team.
Well, you make the team, but so I'm just surprised that so many kids would react so quickly to this without looking at that man's portfolio. I mean, I'm not a Kent State fan. I went to Ohio U. But what he did at Kent State, where nobody had done that in decades upon decades, why would you not pay attention to the man's resume and at least go through spring ball and see what it is? Because I think once you're experiencing what they're going to put in, I know what they're putting in because I've looked at the video. I say, holy cow, this is pretty cool. I call it Aztec hair.
Maybe next Don Coryell. What do you think? I mean,
Well,
an innovator, college football.
Before you anoint him for kingdom or sainthood, let's just see.
Okay. All right, let's move on. We got another couple of comments here. Oh, let's talk about the Dodgers. The amount of chirping on Instagram between Dodgers and Padre fans is unbelievable in the reply section.
I don't know. Big brother arguing with little brother. I don't think that works out very well very often.
These guys are throwing bombs. Gerardo says, hey, the most overrated team in all of Major League Baseball year after year. He's talking about the Dodgers. Their columnists, their broadcasters, national media, and most fans are nothing short of arrogant. The Giants, who have won 3 rings these past 14 years, are not even 1/8 as arrogant as they are. 1 ring these past 43 years. 2020 was really short season, and 1981 was a short season. Want respect? Come back down to earth first.
Oh, Dodger fan throwing Molotov cocktails at Padre fan. Love the rivalry between the two. Big difference, obviously, in money. What the Dodgers can spend, will spend as they draw their $4 million. What the Padres have spent, going $3.2 million. If you develop it in the farm system, the Padres, I will say this, and that's why I would not make any trades now involving anybody in the minor leagues. The Padres farm system at AA and A looks really deep. And maybe within a year, we're going to have the Robbie Snellings and the Dylan Lascos and the Sam Zavalas of the world here at Petco Park. But to get from this point to that point, when those kids arrive, if they stay healthy, etc., it's gonna take some time. But hey, there's nothing wrong with having a little heat come playoff time. No,
I love the rivalry, and granted, we're the little brother in San Diego. The legit rivalry is the Giants Dodgers. But, it's just good to have some of that smack talking. I like it.
Oh, social media is just so out of control.
It's unbelievable. So here's another comment. And this I think is worth talking about because UCLA lost to Cal State Northridge last night. And this is from Granab. And he says, during last year's NBA draft, it was reported that NBA teams are aggressively looking overseas for players, just like UCLA. What reasons were given? American players are soft and narcissistic. Kids today are because of parents today.
Well, there's a better breed of athlete in Europe. It's an amazing breed of big men that are being groomed in these academies in Africa. They're great players, and if they qualify academically, I guess they have a right to take a scholarship offer from UCLA. Are there less players stateside? I don't think so. The one and done thing is a significant issue that I recruit a 5-star guy to come to Kentucky. He's there 1 year, goes to class for 2 semesters, and then he jumps to the NBA immediately. That's a problem. The Euro player, I think because of the cultural change, goes to Gonzaga, or in this case, there's 4 Foreign Legion guys at UCLA. They come spend a couple of 3 years here. So I just think it's a different time in our world. I don't think that we're soft. I think we got great jumping jack athletes, but the bulk of the guys that are coming from abroad are big body guys. Mm-hmm. So maybe we're getting bigger, better men to come from Romania and Latvia, wherever they're all getting all these guys from Europe. And the next venue is Africa. They are developing a lot of big men. There's all kinds of academies there that are now developing college basketball players for maybe hopefully NBA players at these academies in South Africa.
I think these college coaches have like discovered untapped opportunity. It's like the 49ers discovering the gold back in the 19th century. That's what it feels like to me. And Randy Bennett at St. Mary's had his pipeline in Australia.
Gonzaga.
And Gonzaga's had a pipeline. Now everyone else is kind of cooking up their own thing.
University of Arizona.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And then, speaking of Arizona, did you see the game last night? They beat who was it? Alabama.
Yeah.
And Caleb Love, was transferred from North Carolina to Arizona. So that's something. But yeah, all these teams, they're just trying to find unique and creative ways to recruit.
And I think Europe, and now to a degree, Africa. That's the next location. But you got to have resources. You surely got to have the contacts. But what Mick Cronin did, bringing in 4 from Europe, that's pretty impressive. And what Tommy, what's the coach's name at Arizona? What he's done there in about a 3-year span since he replaced Sean Miller, really impressive. So they're quality players there. Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed our extended Thursday podcast.